Namaste for TV9 News. This is Priyanka Deo. Along with Rihanna tweeting out her support for the farmer protest rioters, a string of public figures and celebrities started doing the same. Climate activist Greta Thunberg extended her support, stating that she stands in solidarity with the farmers. Now, Rihanna and Thunberg shared an article on the government's crackdown on rioters that includes cutting internet services. Why the sudden and simultaneous support from global celebrities and public figures, though? Here's what you need to know. Author and niece of U.S. Vice President Kamla Harris also showed her support to the rioters. She writes, and I quote, "It's no coincidence that the world's oldest democracy was attacked not even a month ago, and as we speak, the most populous democracy is under assault." And Harris continues, and I quote, "Militant nationalism is just as potent a force in U.S. politics as it is in India or any place else. It can only be stopped if people wake up to the reality that fascist dictators aren't going anywhere." Now here, she's unsuccessfully trying to relate the farmers' protest to the Capitol protests in the USA that happened just a few weeks ago. However, instead of talking about the protests themselves, she insinuates that PM Narendra Modi and former US President Donald Trump are fascist leaders. This just shows that Harris's agenda, as well as the other faction of supporters suddenly and simultaneously extending their support to the farmers' protest, is not genuine. It's fine to discourage violence and rioting. Sure, go ahead and do that, but be informed about what you're talking about. Now, an example of such a misinformed tweet is U.S. House Representative Jim Costa, who writes, and I quote, "The unfolding events in India are troubling. As a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I am closely monitoring the situation. The right to peaceful protest must always be respected." Now, this appears to be an objective tweet. Of course, every citizen has a right to peacefully protest. But the only problem with this statement is that Costa is misinformed on the farmer protest riots. Republic Day in India saw full-on violence with rioters breaking barricades, hoisting a religious flag where PM Modi hoists the national flag of India, and directly clashing with police. So much so that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and every citizen in India feels that this was just plain insulting, especially on an auspicious national day like Republic Day. The problem here is that these celebrities and public figures really do not care about the welfare of the Indian farmers. They're only interested in pushing their own agenda. The other problem is that these social media posts from these public figures show a lack of understanding and depth of the on-ground realities of the farmers' protests. First of all, these agricultural reforms have already been passed by the Indian Parliament and are now law. Now, in spite of this, the government has had over 10 rounds of talks that have happened between the government and these protesters to try to come to a compromise. If nothing else, it just shows how accommodating the government is. Keep in mind, the GOI does not have to do this since these reforms are already laws. Moreover, peaceful protests are fine if there is actually something unconstitutional or legitimately wrong with the agricultural reforms. But there's been nothing found in the farm laws that are unconstitutional. In fact, the International Monetary Fund has also stated that agricultural reforms will open up options for farmers. IMF Chief Economist Geeta Gopinath states, and I quote, "We do see the potential for these reforms to help farm incomes." To add to this, what makes one question the genuineness of the protesters is that they've made some unrelated demands. One in particular is to withdraw the cases of and release what they refer to as human rights activists, poets, intellectuals, and writers. However, the individuals to be on this list are far from human rights activists, poets, intellectuals, and writers. For instance, the list includes names like Umar Khalid, who has been accused of inciting violence against innocent citizens. The other 20 individuals have all been jailed under the UAPA Act for their roles in the Delhi riots and the Bhima Koregaon violence. Whatever your opinion is of these arrested 20 individuals, whether they are terrorists or not, how does their release in any way relate to the Indian farmer or their welfare or these agricultural reforms? Now, coming back to the point, it's fine to peacefully protest about the bare text of the actual farm laws. Protesting peacefully on an issue is fine, but this protest is not even about the welfare of the Indian farmer anymore. To prove this, several farmer unions have recently pulled out of these protests. The protests are also inconveniencing lakhs and lakhs of people for days now and putting lives at risk. Commuters faced heavy travel every day, and hardworking citizens are bearing the real brunt of these protests. Not to mention, this is happening during COVID-19 health pandemic. We don't even know if ambulances are getting delayed because of these protests. Is this sort of inconvenience fair to hardworking citizens based on a protest against agricultural reforms that are all about the welfare and empowerment of the Indian farmer? Moreover, is this the type of thing that celebrities and public figures overseas are supporting? The list includes Rihanna, Kamla Harris, climate activist Greta Thunberg, and even porn star Mia Khalifa. In response, many Indian public figures, including Akshay Kumar, Ajay Devgan, Kangana Ranaut, and Sunil Shetty, as well as Sachin Tendulkar, put out social media posts stating that meddling from international people is indecorous in India's international affairs. The biggest irony is that as these protesters continue to stage blockades and demonstrations, farmers are benefiting from the reforms. For instance, farmer-producing companies from 4 districts in Maharashtra have earned approximately 10 crore rupees from trade outside the APMCs. This is just about 3 months after the bills were passed. What's more suspicious is the sudden support for these farmer protests from a number of celebrities. What's really suspicious here is the sudden support for the farmer protests from a number of international celebrities and public figures. The farmer protests have been covered in national and international media for months now. So why the sudden concern today from so many, including Rihanna? I implore you not to be misled. It's evident that these public figures could care less about the welfare of the Indian farmer. The farmer protest is being hyped up by them on social media, but it is really not an objective protest about any single issue. Do not buy into this misinformed narrative. It doesn't help the Indian farmer in any way. What's your opinion? I want to hear from you, so leave your thoughts below. Also, be sure to like and share this video with your friends and family and subscribe to TV9 News. With that being said, I'll see you next time. Until then, this is Priyanka Deo signing off. Namaste.